2005's Shadow of the Colossus was a revelation, a game whose gorgeous aesthetic and reserved tone were at the time undeniably distinct. Together with its unique take on boss encounters and a stirring soundtrack, it was a defining title of the PlayStation 2 era. But it was also a game infamous for its technical issues, most notably its choppy, aggravating frame rate. A 2011 HD remaster for the PS3 alleviated the title of this significant tarnish, and now, with 2018's Shadow of the Colossus for PlayStation 4, Bluepoint Games have completely rebuilt every aspect of the game's world, while leaving its underlying structure and mechanics intact, a move which not only enhances the game visually, but uncategorically intensifies the utter majesty of this extraordinary experience. For those unfamiliar, Shadow of the Colossus takes place in an ancient world, where young warrior Wanda and his horse Argo transport a deceased loved one to a forbidden, sealed land. Armed with only a sword and bow, Wanda hopes to take advantage of a fable that suggests that something in this isolated province has the means to bring back the dead. There, he encounters an omnipresent entity who compels him to destroy 16 colossi hidden throughout the territory in order to enable his wish. If you've already played a previous version of Shadow of the Colossus, you'll find that Bluepoint's rendition feels much the same, barring some minor differences in controller mapping, some subtle quality of life tweaks, and a new Easter egg. The locations of each Colossus and their method of defeat remain the same, as do the locations of every white-tailed lizard and fruit collectible. The weight and movement physics of Wanda and Argo feel unchanged, and New Game Plus rewards are identical. But the impact of this completely rebuilt world is transcendent. This is a world that is geographically as you remember, but one that constantly astounds you as if seeing it for the first time. Highly detailed environment modeling in tandem with impressive light and shadow simulation bring amazing life to the game's breathtaking biomes. Luscious forests are densely packed with majestically tall trees and twisting foliage, dappled beautifully with soft rays of sunlight. Vast, arid deserts feel hauntingly desolate as you try and sight somber ruins through a wispy sandstorm. Even the simple sight of mountainous crags and cliff faces is impressive, with shadows acutely defining their rocky surfaces, making them pop ominously. Every place you travel to in this world, every time you crest a hill, emerge from a crevice, or change your perspective, the landscape will be a sight worthy of pause. The increased fidelity of the reconstructed colossi is just as spectacular, and the mere sight of one in this version of the game is even more awe-inspiring than it is in your memory. Each foe, some small and nimble, the rest impossibly titanic and overbearing, is a terrifying beast of stone, fur, and leather. That fur is now noticeably more dense and luscious, and hanging onto it for dear life as your enemy tries to violently shake you off feels even more intense. These moments are enhanced by the increased fidelity of the environment that lies far beneath you when on top of a colossus, combined with motion effects which amplify the sense of danger at these dizzying heights. The first time I mounted a flying colossus in this version of the game, I could feel my chest wrench as I anxiously squeezed my controller to hold on to its wing for dear life, while it soared and flapped wildly through the air. It was truly exhilarating. Playing on a PS4 Pro offers you the ability to further enhance visual fidelity via high dynamic range color, as well as the choice between two different graphical options with different priorities. Cinematic mode enables 4K resolutions on 4K screens, as well as allowing for impressive downsampling for 1080 displays at a targeted 30 FPS. Performance mode provides less impressive graphical quality but maintains a smoother frame rate targeting 60 FPS. In my experience, I prefer the crisper image offered in cinematic mode. Once you realize that you can recognize the definition between each individual blade of grass, it's hard to let that go. However, the visual quality offered by both modes still enhances the experience of the game in ways previously mentioned, especially for those whose last memory of it was suffering through sub 30 FPS frame rate issues on the original PS2 release. It is so fortunate that this visual reconstruction doesn't detract from what makes Shadow of the Colossus a great achievement. The game's holistic and understated direction still comes through incredibly. Its muted colors, cinematic camera angles, and a stark absence of music while exploring the world still evokes a poignant tone of desolation and solitude. The world's large, forsaken landscape doesn't feel bereft of things to do, because simply riding through it and enjoying the majesty of the land, accompanied only by the sound of Argo's hooves scraping against the earth, is a delightfully meditative experience. Fighting a Colossus is still a grand, solemn, and tense challenge that is exhilarating to overcome. The impassioned orchestral soundtrack heightens the pressure of every maneuver, working out how to mount the impossibly enormous enemy, clambering to reach their vulnerabilities as they try to fling you off, and driving a sword into their flesh. Every moment of a Colossus battle is thrilling to execute and witness, whether you're doing it for the first time or the 15th time in a post-game time trial. While the passing of 12 years hasn't affected the overall quality of Shadow of the Colossus, there are two technical annoyances that persist and remind you of a bygone era. The third-person camera system doesn't clip through world objects, so it becomes erratic and troublesome to adjust when moving through enclosed spaces or near a solid object. Additionally, the game's unforgiving climbing system, which asks you to jump with the X button and grasp onto a ledge or surface with the R2 trigger, is occasionally temperamental. There may be times when contact with the ledge may not correctly register, even though you may have been holding R2 well in advance and correctly estimated your distance needed for the jump. However, both of these issues affect only a small amount of time with the game, and should not be considered a significant strike. In the case of the climbing system, it's a quirk which is easy to come to peace with, because of how absolutely essential the mechanic is to creating the rousing pressure and suspense of Colossus encounters. Shadow of the Colossus is a tremendous journey, and one well worth taking and retaking. The visual overhaul is simply stunning and thoroughly enhances every facet of Wanda and Argo's excellent adventure. Galloping through the world is always breathtaking, and felling a monumental Colossus is always humbling. Shadow of the Colossus is a beautiful reconstruction of an already exceptional title. It continues to be a modern classic, and is an extraordinary game that everyone must experience.